Hey guys, Thomas the Soy Jr. here, aka Mustached Tom, here to review the movie Escape Room Tournament of Champions. If you end up enjoying this review, then please consider subscribing. Also consider joining my Patreon page. There will be the second link in the description below. With the shilling out of the way, let's get into it. That being Escape Room Tournament of Champions. So, this movie is a sequel to Escape Room, which there were other movies called Escape Room, but nonetheless, uh, it was the more recent movie called Escape Room, so that might clear things up a little bit. Nonetheless, this movie decides to recap the entire first movie, or little glimpses of it. So if you had missed it, this movie is gonna spoil that one if you haven't seen it yet, or some of it anyway. So anyways, we cut back to 2003 where we see this mother and daughter returning home, and the mother wants to run away with the daughter, with the dad being deep in his dark work. Meanwhile, the daughter unpacks several items in this little mini case and is starting to pack them neatly into one. Meanwhile, the mother gets trapped in the steam room after, again, wanting to leave the dad. She figures out that she's in a dire situation, so the heat is heating up, and she starts to try to escape room her way out of it, but she doesn't quite make it, meaning that she passes away. Then we cut to quote-unquote present day, where we meet our characters from the previous movie who survived, Zoe and Ben. Zoe, who is the more further of the two in wanting to take down this escape room situation of person who put them in the situation in the first place. Thus, we talk about their situation. Ben explains after some talking that he got fired from his job from getting a panic attack, apparently, which sucks. Then, as they're in the room, heading, toward their destination, he has a nightmare that the room that he is in starts to fall apart. So the both of them still have some PTSD or some flashes to the previous experience. Nonetheless, we cut to New York, where they end up going, where this random drug guy robs them as they make their way into this alleyway. They begin chasing him, and they chase him towards and into a train. The two of them proceed to get suckered into running into the train as the doors close. As the train begins moving, the train eventually untracks, or goes to a separate destination than what they are initially thinking. The train eventually crashes and everyone gets hurt in the process. They try hitting the emergency button, but that doesn't seem to do much. And they eventually all discover that the six of them, two of them being the ones we've seen before, all people who've also escaped from other escape rooms, and they collectively, or at least one of them, point out that this is a tournament of champions, thus the obvious name. So, as we proceed to go through that, something connects to the train, and the powerful surge of electricity begins to power through it. So we begin our attempt at the escape room, except it's an escape train. We have this drunk guy, the third character, um, a black woman, a deaf guy, and a red-haired woman, whose names we don't know yet, so I'm leading you up to that moment. So they're all doing their little parts, finding little bits and pieces, clues to help them escape. The deaf guy uses his belt to open the door because there's like electricity passing through, as I mentioned. The letters, or the handlebars that are among the train, give them letters of the alphabet, and they proceed to get more and more shocked, or at least one of them does. And the shock is spreading as they are taking more and more time. Eventually, the deaf guy gets shocked so hard by grabbing one of the poles, he eventually dies, and the rest of them are narrowly able to escape as the train continues to be pulsed with electricity. When they are in this elevator, they discover, or they kind of realize, that they didn't even learn each other's names yet, which is why I also just did that. So, the black woman, as I described earlier, her name is Brianna. The drunk guy, who we learn is actually a priest, is named Nate, and the red-haired woman is named Rachel. So, now that they know each other's names, the rest of them, the group tries to find some little reprieve, but it's not too long-lasting, as they make their way into the next area, that being an underground bank. And as they proceed to move toward one of the tiles, these green lasers turn on that hurt very badly. So, they need to find some keys and stuff. We have people unlocking boxes, and we learned a name, a woman named Sonia, and proceed to unlock codes, and all the while, a lot of them taking as much time as they do for this particular room, they nearly or barely are able to escape, especially Zoe, as the room fills with the green lasers and the door is closing as this is also happening throughout the entire sequence. So there's always a ticking clock in this movie, and it's always like boom, 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 boom. So, speaking of barely able to escape, the cave that they enter into nearly collapses the moment they enter, so they don't get a much reprieve moment as the last cage moment that they had. So they head to this outside area, quote-unquote, and it looks like a beach. They take a photo, and once they do, the area is able to change to look like how it would in a photograph, which is sort of neat in a weird sort of way. And the walls look really weird because they are made of the water that was once there. But the group does not realize that the photo and the camera that they had are dropping into the sand, that being quicksand. So the group, again, rushing as they per usually do, start collecting stuff, finding some clues. They eventually find this little anchor, and are able to place it where they need to. However, as the situation gets worse here, Rachel is pulled into the sand, and once she is nearly dragged all the way in, Nate dives in after her and pulls her out. However, he is unable to be pulled out. So he is instead pulled in. So, Zoe, our main lead, goes up to this little lighthouse, and Ben moves up there as well, as the other two are proceeding to find this other way out, so the two groups seem to be separating. And he rushes over to this mannequin that had the keys that they passed by before, and completely, even though they are being perceptive before, the tension and the heat of the moment, I guess, they completely neglected to keep up with, because they're trying to be a little bit more expedient in their process. But as the groups are getting split up, Brianna, of the four of them, gets blocked off. And in the process of this, they get split up even further as Ben falls into the sand as well. Zoe cries I would say the acting could have been a little bit more believable with actually having tears. She doesn't quite reach that emotional level, but still attempts to get emotional. And Rachel, who's with her, comforts her. So they proceed to go up the moon exit, and Brianna ends up heading toward the other exit. And they hear noises, the two of them, Rachel and Zoe, when they have a very brief reprieve of another moment. They think they escape when they hear the outside noises, and they head back up to the sewer grate, and they look like they're outside. However, they meet up with Brianna, so that loops back to the same location. So Brianna is trying to escape that way, but the area gets locked off. And what is happening above them is that the water, or I should say acid above them, is shooting down at a set of timed intervals, and the time is much, much shorter. We're talking about like a minute per thing. So now, the thinking process is a lot less active. It's much more like, oh, we gotta go. They're still able to manage to get their clues, melt the lock, find this cab where they're able to hide one of them into, that being Zoe. However, through all the processes, she eventually gets locked into the cab, and the two women, with the time running out, that being Rachel and Brianna, being left outside where the rain is still falling, or acid I should say, and they kind of acid burned to death. So they both die. And then Zoe falls. Meanwhile, our bad guy wants to continue the game even though he's being told that they are being compromised. All the while, Zoe wakes up meeting before this woman named Claire, a woman based off of the girl we saw earlier in the movie, the daughter, now older. We also see that Ben is alive, actually. The sand apparently tossed him into another room, but more of a jail cell, I should say. But the other men grab him and pull him away. Meanwhile, Zoe is talking with the daughter and realizing that she was the one who built all these rooms, and she claims that she had no choice in the matter and that she was in this escape room as well and only had two chances left and needs help getting out. So she's persisting in trying to get out. So they proceed to get the codes, help her escape. Meanwhile, in his last hurrah, Nate is pulled out because he was also pulled out as well, but injured nonetheless. But he's able to help with the situation with the father guy shooting him because he got a gun at some point. Uh, and with Claire's blessing, Zoe escapes via car. Then she proceeds to get to the scene where they initially were before the train, meeting up back up with Ben, who is injured, and he returns her mother's trinket that she was had at some point. We learn, as we cut back to Claire and her father, that she was the one who killed her mom. Apparently, she was the one who was testing her time and time again, and she was the one who set up that particular room code reveal or whatever, or, jigsaw reveal with the music and everything. She then proceeds to press in the wrong code as the father is in the room that she was once in, with one code in attempt remaining, and she proceeds to type in the wrong code on purpose, saying that she will do better than he ever could as the movie comes to its close, insinuating that this is not the end, that she will take up the mantle in her own way, according to her own sort of ending way. And that was Escape Room, Tournament of Champions. So, unfortunately, this movie, like most horror movies within its modern spectrum, has the issue that a lot of current horror movies tend to have, and that's having that poor character base setup. And the only characters you could say you probably wouldn't know, well, only if you saw the first movie, would be Zoe and Ben, and we didn't really get to learn too awfully much about them. I'd say probably enough to be like, yeah, I suppose that we want them to live. But the other characters that are introduced here, their templates are just far too simple, and the process in which we jump into things and don't catch enough of a break, when you have a scene where they're in that cage, as I mentioned, right past the train, that would have been your moment to sort of let that scene breathe, let the characters explore who they are, and, beyond just a name, something, and they reveal very little bits and pieces about themselves. But again, I don't think it's quite enough to leave a memorable impact, so you're more so rooting for the characters. Again, there are little bits and pieces of that in here. Again, so I probably would give this movie somewhere around like a 5 out of 10. And I do understand that as the escape room process continues, and with the ticking clock and all, that there's always this sense of tension that is, that is the level of tension that is the primary focus, and finding clues is obviously a big part of, escape rooms in general, so it's a big part of, the characters trying to figure out, what to do, how to get out within that time frame. So there's always that sense of movement, and I can see why it would be a little bit hard with that sort of setup to develop these characters in such a way that you would be like, yeah, I kind of man, I was hoping that that character would survive, that being the thing that you would want a general audience to say to any character in this movie. Um, and again, I guess the closest you get to that, again, would probably be when Ben falls into the sand, because again, they built that a little bit more here between Zoe and Ben and their relationship from the first movie that carries over to this movie. Um, and the rest definitely feel a lot more expendable in comparison to that. Again, just little bits and pieces. In terms of a score, yeah, as I mentioned, like a 5 out of 10. And with that being said, that's where I'm going to end this review. So, and if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated. And until next time, everyone, bye bye.